So here I am, it's 3 o'clock a.m. and I'm lying awake in bed thinking about my Factorio base like many a Factorio player have done. And the thought comes to mind, I've made beautiful mega bases before, but how do I top what I've already done for my next base? Have I set the bar too high? My mind is spinning as I'm thinking of themes from my previous bases over and over. Beautiful, big, octagon, rails, lake, cars on belts, delivery, organized, creative, main bus. And after a time it hits me. What if I were to take some of the themes from my previous bases, like cars on belts for instance, but instead of using cars to deliver ore for smelting, the cars become my main bus system? In fact, what if I go without a traditional main bus at all? I began to imagine a large belt circle with cars going all around. In each car, there's stacks and stacks of different resources that stop every couple tiles where filter inserters pull from the car to the factory that needs it along the way. And then I started to lay out the factory in my mind. Smelting, maybe circuits and oil processing on the outside, intermediary factories, mall system, rocket silos on the inside, until finally the very center is a beautiful water feature. The next morning I drew this. Now obviously it can't be to scale or even remotely accurate, and I'm sure some of this stuff won't be how it actually turns out, because it is impossible to know that everything can fit this way until I start planning it out further and making some calculations. But this drawing isn't to show what it will be, but what I'm using as inspiration for what it can be. The tiny little squares on the outside represent the cars that will be traveling around the base. We'll have a bunch of walkways, and as far as electricity, I'll plan on using either a very small nuclear build, or I will incorporate thousands of solar panels and accumulators to make a perimeter around the entire base, along with some sort of defensive wall. I would like to aim for at least 1,000 signs per minute, but if I plan it large enough, I would ideally like to hit 2,500 or 3,000 signs per minute, though that may be stretching it for a base with these features. Regardless of size or signs per minute rate, I want this to be the smartest base I have ever made in terms of train station features, logistics, and circuitry, so I will definitely be prioritizing beauty and logistics over scale. Now with doing something like this that is so modular, I'll have to be very careful with my in-game calculations and planning, because if I make it too small, there's no going back unless I want to wrap up all of my hard work, and by then it may be too late. But if I can pull this off, this would be one of my coolest and most beautiful bases yet. So that leads me back to this episode, which I am considering to be 14.5 because it's somewhere in between episode 14 and 15, whereas it's not a real true Let's Play episode. But last episode we ended with picking the location for this potential base. Some of the things I was looking for was a large area without too much water in the way or requiring tons of landfill. Because I'm not planning on going nearly as big as my 0.16 series, I think I can get away with a smaller base footprint, so this map should hopefully meet that requirement. Unfortunately, this is where I will have to end today's 14.5 episode. Short and sweet, but now you guys know my inspiration for a base I hope to implement, or at least spend the next part of this series trying to implement. The Let's Play series will likely slow down at this point because from here on out there's a lot of planning, designing, and calculating that needs to take place, but I hope to include you guys in on that footage or live streams when I can. We're going to wrap it up here, but until next time, feel free to leave me your comments, critiques, and suggestions down below, and I hope I will be seeing you guys soon.